Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden. We're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital, and we're revisiting one of my favourite breweries here actually. These guys are known for being very prolific. So for this one then we are going to return to Beerbliotek and we're having a look at one of the beers that they released in January of 2020 through the local and Småsikt assortiment in the Systembolaget. This one is number 262 according to their numbering system. It's called I'm So Aware This Is Happening, and it's a double IPA coming in at 7.9% ABV, and I'm led to believe this one is a West Coast style IPA, so it should be a really interesting one to try. As I've complained over the last year or maybe even longer than that, I've been really missing the old West Coast IPAs with the higher bitterness and the sweet malt bases and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to this one, and hopefully it's another good beer. Shout out in this video as well to Beer Hedonist, who is one of the numerous Swedish beerstagrammers that I talked to on there. I think I'd ordered this one and he messaged me to recommend it, and then we had a little conversation again after that. We talk about quite a lot of beers on there actually, but he's always looking at some very interesting stuff. So if you are on Instagram, make sure you check out Beer Hedonist. He's got some, he seems to review stuff from all over the place. I think he does Glassbank and as well as Systembolaget and things like that too. He's from away up in the north in Sweden if I remember correctly. So yeah, give him your patronage, check him out, very nice guy when I've been speaking to him as well, and hopefully I can meet him at one of the various beer festivals across Sweden at some point in the future. We'll need to see about that. If we do, I'll definitely post an Instagram photo of that too. But yeah, looking forward to this one. Thank you to him for the recommendation, and we'll see how we get on with this one. Really looking forward to a nice West Coast IPA. So yeah, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Beerbliotek before. There must be about 10 or so of them there, if not more. There's all the usual social media down there too. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Beerbliotek. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Beerbliotek are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded back in 2013 by a multinational group of friends. This is Adam Norman, who's an Aussie, Richard Bull, who's a Kiwi from New Zealand, Anders Hedlund, who is a Swede, and then Daryl Denecker, who is from South Africa. And I've actually spoken to Daryl through Facebook and things a couple of times now. Very nice guy, and you might get to see him in a Meet the Brewer video at some point in the future. But basically what happened with these guys was that Adam and Richard ran Bar Doppio in Gothenburg, and then Daryl and Anders were regular customers at the bar, and they often just used to sit and talk about beer and different styles and all of this kind of things. But then one day they decided they were going to buy a brewing kit and brew beer for themselves. So the original brewery that they had is in the old Klippan Sugar building, which is a really nice old building, and it's actually very close to the old Carnegie Brewery in Gothenburg as well. The brew kit that they have is from Brewfab in Scotland, and in their first year they produced around 40 different types of beer, and this is what they're known for. They're known for being very prolific, but all their beers were brewed in very small batches, and so this, they said, helped them kind of stick to the original roots of home brewing, and for a long time they very rarely brewed the same beer more than once. These days though, they do kind of have a fixed range. There are beers that you see coming out quite regularly, because they are quite popular, like a Passion for Gingers as an example. That's a really nice one. Some of the black IPAs I've seen appear on a few different occasions as well. Eternal Dankness and Eternal Darkness appear very regularly too. But they're always doing new experimental beers. That's why they have their numbering system, so you can kind of keep track of what's going on. But in 2015 they opened up a second and larger brewery in Kungston, which is where they have their tap room now, and they now run their main brewing operations out of there. The older brewery is used mainly for producing sour beers, And they also do a little bit of barrel aging in the new brewery as well. They do have tap rooms in both of these breweries from what I understand though, and hopefully, as I say, I can go and film a little out and about video up there and also meet Daryl Denecker as well, and do a little meet the brewer, kind of meet the owner type thing with that brewery as well. But the idea behind the name Beerbliotek is that they wanted to brew beers so that they could teach their customers about like a new malt variety or a new hop variety or even new yeasts and things like that every time. And basically they said they wanted to create a library of beer, hence the name Beerbliotek. Bibliotek, of course, being Swedish for library. So yeah, interesting one. But as I say, I've had some very good experiences with these guys before. The Eternal Darkness is a beautiful imperial stout. Eternal Dankness is very nice as well. A Passion for Gingers was a good one. They did a very nice sort of Belgian style IPA with 6 Degrees North from my native Scotland as well. That was a really quite nice beer. I've had, it's difficult to keep track of all the beers that I've had from this brewery. So, with these guys though, pick a style that you like, and I'm sure you'll get something that you really quite enjoy. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Beerbliotek for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website. They've got an extensive list of all the different beers that they have there as well. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And of course, you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to see all the different beers and stuff that they have. They do have a Scotch ale that hasn't been released through Systembolaget, and that's one that I really do want to try. So if any of you are watching and you know where to get a hold of the Scotch ale that they have from the barrel aging programme, I would love to know that, because I love reviewing Scotch ales from different parts of the world. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. So as you can see, it's got that kind of typical artwork that you'll get from Beerbliotek. In some ways it's quite modern, but see, in some ways it reminds me of some of these things that you would see on the wall in like the 60s and the 70s. It's got a little bit of that almost retro feel to it as well, but I like it, I have to say. And the Beerbliotek symbol, you can see it right in the middle of it there. It says on the side here, double IPA. A lot of our beer names are inspired by people we meet at festivals and experiences we share. See you at a festival if you want to inspire our next beer name. See more awesome beer names at beerbliotek.com. So yeah, I'm so aware this is happening. But yeah, this one, as I say, comes in at 7.9% ABV. It's a double IPA. It's supposed to be a West Coast one, this, according to Beer Hedonist, and the hops on this, according to the website, are Columbus, which we know is a very good kind of spicy bittering hop, Equinox, which has got some lovely limey qualities, and also Citra, which we know is mango, with a load of other kind of things thrown into it as well. But this one is a little 330ml can, and I have to say I do love this, how Beerbliotek do the made in Sweden thing, especially when you consider that it is a sort of multinational group of friends. There's only one Swede in the ownership team, from what I gather. So yeah, I do like that. I'd love to see more craft breweries doing that, putting on what country it's from, because it's good to try beers from different places. That was one of the reasons I started up this channel, of course. I just wanted to try lots of things from different places and remember what they tasted like, to be honest. But yeah, little 330ml can, this one. Let's get it out and into the glass. Really curious about this one, I have to say. Hopefully it's got a nice big bitterness and a good bit of caramel malt or biscuit malt and stuff in it too. But yeah, just look at that. That looks like a beautiful beer. So yeah, as you can see with this one, if I hold this up to the light, this is poured, it's kind of verging on a very light amber, but it's mainly a kind of bright goldeny straw colour actually. It's almost kind of similar in colour to like a German Helles or something like that, but just leaning a bit more towards the amber side of things. I mean, it's got that, it does have a little bit of haze to it, but this is the kind of level of haze you would expect from a West Coast IPA on tap. You can see there's about a 1/2 to 2/3 finger of a frothy cream coloured head on this one. I wouldn't say it's perfect white. I think the head on this is definitely more of a cream colour. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But overall, it does look very nice, this one. Pretty much what you would expect from a West Coast IPA, if you like, if it is indeed a West Coast IPA. Not that I need to doubt Beer Hedonist, because he's always pretty spot on, but yeah, the definition of West Coast IPA in Europe seems to have changed a little bit. I've had some beers before where they say it's a West Coast IPA, but it doesn't quite turn out, like Sculpin or something like this, one of the benchmarks. So yeah, let's have a look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. Nothing overly surprising about this beer. in terms of its appearance. Oh yeah, there is something definitely a little bit nostalgic about this. That's got a lovely aroma to it. You can definitely smell the bigger boozy notes that you would expect of a West Coaster in this one. It's just the thing about the malt base. The malt base comes across as being a little bit more boozy in a West Coast IPA. I mean, I've had New England IPAs that are like 8.5% and things like this, like the Treehouse and Trillium ones that I was reviewing recently from Chris Contreras. You know, they were beast, but they didn't smell that boozy. You know, the oats and the wheat and things really covers a lot of that up. But the West Coast IPAs, the caramelly and the biscuity notes you get out of them, the booze really infuses into that, and you pick that up straight away with this beer. This smells lovely. So yeah, I mean, you can pick up a little bit of that kind of pale bready malt thing that you expect of a West Coaster. Nice sweet caramel there. It does come across as being a little bit boozy. It's not toasty or anything. There's a little bit of a biscuity note to it as well. You know, maybe there's a teeny bit of woodiness underneath this one as well. You can pick up one or two little grainy elements for me. But I mean, to me, this strikes me as a very old school West Coast kind of boozy, caramelly, biscuity sort of malt base. There are other things in there, but really it's the booziness that jumps out of this beer at you right away that's very, very nice. So yeah, it's a bit nostalgic for me. I've got high hopes for this one now, I have to say. So yeah, for the hoppy side of things then, it doesn't come across as being too pungent in terms of its hops. I mean, you can pick up this one, I think, from the aroma, you can pick out that the hops have been added a little bit earlier. I think this one will have a good bit of bitterness to it. You can get that nice dark floral quality, and it's almost a bit spicy. That's what you expect of Columbus. Columbus is kind of the classic bittering hop, along with the likes of Chinook, for example, but Chinook can be used as an aroma hop as well. Columbus is mainly just all about kind of spicy floral notes, but Chinook has the pine resins, but it also has a bit of grapefruit. But you really get that kind of darker, danky kind of quality to it, which is nice. But on top of that, you get a little bit of grassiness as well. This one definitely leans towards that darker, dank end of the spectrum on the green side of the hops. But the fruits in this are interesting. I really find this one to be quite limey, which is what you would expect from the Equinaut hop, so that's not surprising. But you've also got some of the tropical notes in there. But it's interesting with Citra. Sometimes in the West Coast IPAs, Citra it smells like dried fruit rather than that juicy mango, and I think this is another interesting thing to talk about between the West Coast and the New England ones. I've always found with the West Coast IPAs, the fruit can smell as if it's a little bit oily, or it can smell a little bit dried, depending on what it is. And I think the mango notes that you get in this one from the Citra, they almost come across as being a little bit like jammy, or kind of similar to how orange turns if you put it in marmalade. It's just got a little bit of that sort of almost jammy, jelly as the Americans would call it, that kind of thing to it. So yeah, definitely a bit of mango in there. There's maybe a little bit of a kind of like I don't know if it's apricot or what it is. It's not pineapple anyway. There's definitely another bit of a slightly tropical note to this one, but the limey notes really come out quite nicely. And maybe there's just a little bit of lychee to this one too, those kind of lychee gooseberry notes that you can sometimes get from Citra. But the fruit comes across as very kind of oily, but also quite dried and kind of jammy, if that makes sense. It's the limes, a bit of the lime, a little bit of the kind of mango, and there's a few other little complexities in there as well. But like I say, I've got quite high hopes for this one based on the aroma. As I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But we're going to have a taste of this one now. So this one is the I'm So Aware This Is Happening, number 262. Yep, number 262 from Beerbliotek in Gothenburg here in Sweden. Thank you once again to Beer Hedonist for getting in touch with me about this beer, and we'll need to see how we get on with it. Let's have a taste. Slange, skål, kampai. Oh yeah, yeah, that's nicely done. It's definitely got a little bit of modernity to it, to be honest. It's not. There's a lot of the kind of classic West Coast character to this one, but there is just a little bit more modernity to it. But I mean, I'll just say straight away again, thumbs up to Beerbliotek for this beer. They have done a very solid job with this one, I have to say, and I wouldn't expect anything less from them, to be honest. I've had very good experiences with these guys. I mean, some of the barrel aging beers, the Would I Lie to You, I think, was that a barley wine? But regardless, you know, that was a beautiful, beautiful beer, and then they're very capable when it comes to the IPAs and things like that too. One of the things I really like about this brewery is they're not scared to try different styles, and they also do them very, very well. That's why I want to try their Scotch Ale, of course. But yeah, I think that thing that I was saying about the sort of modernity with this beer, it really has that kind of classic West Coast malt base to it. But the thing that's maybe a bit unusual for me with this is having Equinaut in it, because, you know, I don't remember Equinaut being used, at least with by the European breweries. I don't remember that being used all that often in the more West Coast type IPAs. I think that my experiences with Equinaut are definitely more along the kind of hazy IPA side of things. So that's maybe what's striking me as a little bit unusual about this beer. But I tell you something, if you've been missing the West Coast IPAs, this is really quite nice. It's a bit of a shame. That's one of the only downsides to Beerbliotek, is they'll do some really nice beers and then they'll just disappear. But you know, if they do turn out to be popular enough, they tend to bring them back, and I hope that this is one that they keep, because this is, you know, for one of their kind of more, they're less, it's fair to say, less special beers, one of the kind of more regular releases, because I think they said this is a seasonal beer. This is really spot on for me, so I hope this is one that kind of finds its way into the regular range. I think they've done this. This would be a good beer to bring back the West Coast IPAs with. Yeah, it's awesome. So yeah, let's try, pardon me, and describe the flavour of this one a little bit then. So straight away with this beer, you get a little bit of that kind of pale malty base that you expect there, but the further you go into the aftertaste, you can really feel it sweeten up a little bit. In the middle of your palate, you've definitely got a little bit of a sweet caramel there, but it's quite minimal actually. It's not as oily and sweet as you might get from some of the beers in the States, like, you know, Sculpin and Torpedo and stuff like this. It's a bit more modern than that. It definitely becomes, as you go further out from the centre of the palate, it gets a little bit more kind of biscuity and things like that, and I really like that about this beer. And you will find it does get that little bit more oily, but it has that biscuity flavour rather than the thicker caramel. That kind of is what is sitting in the very middle of your palate. You might get a little touch of a woody quality as you go to the front corners of your palate and move in. There's a very, very slight hint of a sort of woody undertone to this beer, but primarily pale malt, a little bit of sweet, quite sweet caramel in the very centre of your palate. That'll be the booziness coming out of the beer. And then on top of that, it's got that nice sort of McVitie's digestive biscuit type quality, and that really is what sits in the middle of your tongue. I've really missed these sweeter, you know, the sweetness of the malt base in the West Coast IPAs. I mean, I do enjoy a very good New England IPA, but trying things like this, you know, I love these. I wish that they were a bit more even-handed with the brewing. You know, there's so many hazy IPAs these days. I wish that more of the hazy IPA breweries, for example, like Apex or Beerbliotek, or, you know, and even Spike Brewing as well. It'd be nice to see these guys go back and have a little go at something more along the lines of this. I think that would be a really interesting exercise for them. And it'd be nice to see some more black IPAs again as well, but I've noticed they are, there's a big trend in Sweden at the moment with Schwarzbiers and Tamavis and stuff, so it'd be cool to see some more black IPAs as well. That seems to be a style that's forgotten about these days too. But this is nice. Hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, there's a teeny little bit of earthiness coming out of this one. This one, I think, it does have a degree of bitterness. I don't find this one quite as bitter as some of the West Coast IPAs that I've had before, but in fairness, it might be that I've taken a few sips of it now and it doesn't feel quite as bitter as it might have been on the impact. But yeah, there is a little bit of earthiness to this one at the back corners of the palate. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, it does have a nice little bit of that kind of floral, slightly spicy floral bitterness that you would expect of Columbus, and then round the very front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, and then the fruitiness comes out in that oily bubble behind the front curve of the tongue. So yeah, again, the fruitiness in this is really nicely balanced. So I would say if you go to the back of that oily bubble, there's a teeny little bit of that darker, more pungent grapefruity passion fruit thing that you can get from Citra. But as you come further forward from it, it very quickly evolves to be a more juicy mango note. There's a little bit of a kind of apricot-y note in there as well. There's definitely a little bit of a... Yeah, there is a little bit of a sort of, what do you say, papaya type note? Yeah, papaya apricots. There's definitely a little bit of that there. But then as you reach the kind of front edge of the tongue, that's when the equinot really starts to come out, and it is nice and limey on the front part of your palate too. I mean, what I would say about this beer is, compared to some West Coast IPAs that I've had, I mean, Amar Batch 1000, that's one of the best ones I think that you're going to find in Europe. I mean, this is one of the ones for me that comes across as being very straight up, but it's really nicely done. I don't find this one as bitter as some of the ones that I've come across before, and I think that again is one of those points I was making, that it's a little bit more of a modern take on the West Coast IPA. People don't quite want as much bitterness in their beers just now, but it does still have a fair whack to it compared to the New Englands, right enough, and the hazy IPAs. Yeah, I mean, I think this one, I think at most this one will be about 50 IBUs. I think it's somewhere in that kind of region. But the main thing about this one is, like I say, not the most complex of West Coast IPAs, but it's really very solidly done, and you can't ask for much more than that. I mean, Citra and Equinot, it's a solid mix to go with, actually. I'd love to see them, you know, take, because they've obviously got a very good base recipe with this. It'd be nice to see them try and sort of resurrect the West Coast IPA a little bit, and you know, try different hop varieties and things with that, because I think a lot of the beer drinkers that have come in over the last 5 years or so have been used to the hazy, juicy IPAs rather than the kind of more old school West Coast ones, actually. So it'd be cool to see Beerbliotek keep this base recipe and try different hops and things in it as well. So hopefully that's something they'll do, and with the experimental nature that they've got, maybe that is something that we will see them do. But they've done a really nice job with this one, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. It's a bit dangerously drinkable for basically an 8% beer as well, but you know, we're not going to complain about that. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say it's quite a full-bodied beer, this one. It feels quite nice and thick. The carbonation's really smooth. The mouthfeel leans towards the oily side of things. It really is quite a big oily beer, this one. In terms of bitterness, like I said, I think it's about 50 IBUs. It's not as bitter as some of the West Coast IPAs that you're going to find in America and things, but it's still got enough to be a bit higher than what people are used to these days, which is what you expect of the West Coast beers. Lovely balance of smoothness, but it leans a bit more towards the kind of sweeter side of things in the malt base too, and the fruits come across as really nice and oily, which is what you expect of the West Coast sub-style as well. But yeah, an awesome beer, this one. Not surprising when it's Beerbliotek though, and I'm glad that I was able to review this one for you. So yeah, hopefully a few more West Coast IPAs from the various breweries around Sweden, but let's leave it at that for this one. I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this beer. It's been really cool to return to Beerbliotek after being away in Japan for a month or so. I think it's been about 6 weeks or so since I last published a review from Beerbliotek. But great to return to these guys, one of my favourite breweries here. And like I say, hopefully I can do some out and about videos at their places around Gothenburg as well. You might even see it and meet the owner video at some point soon. But yeah, this one was number 262. I'm so aware this is happening. a West Coast IPA, double IPA at 7.9% ABV from Beerbliotek in Gothenburg. An awesome beer, and one that I recommend you try if you're a fan of this style. Shout out once again to Beer Hedonist, and I'm sure he and I will be talking on Instagram at some point soon. Thank you again for watching. Make sure you check out Beerbliotek, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Slanja, Skull, Kampai, make sure you check out this beer and Beerbliotek Brewery. Cheers.